Good evening. President Donald Trump is facing a major constitutional deadline over U.S. military action against Iran, as the 60-day limit under the War Powers Resolution comes into focus. The law, passed in 1973 after the Vietnam War, requires a president to obtain congressional authorization for continued military involvement in hostilities. Without approval from Congress, the president is generally required to end the military action after 60 days, with a possible 30-day withdrawal period. That deadline arrived on May 1, 2026, after the Trump administration notified Congress that U.S. hostilities involving Iran had begun earlier this year. But the White House is arguing that the deadline no longer applies. In a letter to congressional leaders, President Trump said hostilities with Iran had terminated, citing a ceasefire and the absence of direct exchanges of fire between U.S. forces and Iran since April 7, 2026. The administration's position is that because active hostilities have ended, congressional approval is not required to continue current operations. That claim has sparked immediate legal and political debate in Washington. Critics say the War Powers Resolution does not include a clear ceasefire exception. They argue that U.S. military activity in the region, including continued naval operations and pressure on Iranian oil shipments, may still qualify as involvement in hostilities. Democrats have accused the administration of trying to bypass Congress and weaken one of the few legal checks on presidential war-making power. Some Republicans have also expressed concern, saying that if military action resumes, the president should seek explicit authorization from lawmakers. At the center of the dispute is a fundamental constitutional question: who decides when the United States remains at war? The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, while the president serves as commander-in-chief. The War Powers Resolution was designed to balance those roles by allowing short-term emergency action, but requiring legislative approval for longer conflicts. The Trump administration argues that the ceasefire changed the legal situation. Opponents argue that a pause in fighting does not erase the deadline, especially if U.S. forces remain deployed in ways connected to the same conflict. The issue is also politically sensitive. The Iran conflict has already shaken energy markets, increased pressure on global shipping routes, and raised concerns about a wider regional war. A congressional vote could force lawmakers to publicly choose whether to support continued military action or demand a pullback. For now, Republican leaders in Congress have shown little appetite for a direct confrontation with the White House. Previous efforts to restrict or end the Iran operation have struggled to advance. But the deadline has renewed scrutiny of presidential authority, military accountability, and the role of Congress in deciding matters of war and peace. Legal experts say the next steps may depend on whether U.S. forces take new offensive action, whether lawmakers challenge the administration's interpretation, and whether courts are asked to weigh in. The White House says the conflict has ended. Critics say the war powers clock cannot simply be stopped by declaration. And with U.S. forces still positioned in a volatile region, the debate over Iran is now also a debate over the limits of presidential power. This has been your political news update. The key question now is whether Congress will assert its war powers authority or allow the White House's interpretation to stand.